Hi there, so glad you could join us for another informative weekend edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. In today's show, food safety procedures plus health-wise, as always, takes you on a wellness path to good health. Still to come, tips on creating wealth through farming. Stick around for these and more interesting features packed for your viewing pleasure.
The wait is over. After a 2-year hiatus, the Denbigh Agricultural, Industrial and Food Show is back. The 68th staging is set to begin on July 23 at the Denbigh Showground in Maypen, Clarendon, under the theme, Grow Smart, Eat Smart.
We want energy. We want excitement. We want us to be aggressively moving.
This year's show returns with Villages for Youth in Agriculture, Children, Health and Wellness Village, along with livestock and agricultural and horticultural displays and much more. Festivities commence on Saturday, July 23 with a Farmers Run Walk in Clarendon. The National Farm Queen Coronation and youth activities are set for Saturday, July 30. Sunday, July 31 begins a High Pro Denbigh Gospel Extravaganza for patrons. For the finale on Monday, August 1, the event will culminate with a showcase of Jamaica's culture.
Denbigh 68 will be a great event. It will be entertaining. It will be exciting.
Gates open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. Admission $1,200 for adults and $600 for children. Tickets will be available at the gate.
Food safety practices are important for preventing food contamination that could harm consumers. We begin our journey inside Jamaica Magazine with a look at government's work to ensure wholesome foods in the marketplace.
The Food Storage and Prevention of Infestation Division is mandated to ensure the wholesomeness of food entering commerce. So it's a division that is geared towards food safety. And to do that, we have an inspectorate unit, that is our frontline unit, that would go to the various points of entry, to anywhere that stores food. So we have inspectors stationed at the ports of entry, at supermarkets, warehouses. We check containers. Inspectors are almost anywhere where food is stored.
The Food Storage and Prevention of Infestation Division has been accredited to the ISO 17020 standard, which certifies their competence in doing food and field inspection in premises, containers, and on ships.
We also do breeding for schools and universities. So yes, we do that with the rats. We actually do trapping as well. We go out into the field and we do trapping. So at various locations, we'll take some designated rat traps and we go out and we would trap rats and we breed them in-house.
The division also comprises of a rodent biology and control unit where they conduct efficacy testing to see how effective rodenticides are on the rats.
There are some myths floating around with rats and how to keep rats away. And one of the myths is that you have to spice up the poison for them to eat it and to die, which isn't really so. It's best not to add things like gravy or other foodstuff to the poison. What you want the rat to do is to eat as much of the poison as possible.
Another myth is that by using select rodenticides, you will not be able to smell the rat once it dies.
The smell of the rat has to do with really how the time at which it dies and how far it is from where you thought it died. Another myth is that the rats can't climb on wires. Some of us would really see that, they can climb on wires. You can see them on the utility wires. Another myth is that if a rat bites your fruit, for example a mango, you can cut off that bitten portion and eat the rest. No, it's best to discard it and best not to eat it. because if the rat has eaten part of it, they could mess on the rest of the fruit. So you wouldn't want that. So if you have a fruit that is bitten by rats, best to discard it.
In addition to the Rodent Biology and Control Unit, the Food Storage and Prevention of Infestation Division also has other testing laboratories such as the Pesticide, Residue and Microtoxin Unit, a Microbiology Unit, and an Entomology Unit. For more information on the Food Storage and Prevention of Infestation Division, an entity under the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, visit or call them at their offices at 15 Gordon Road in Kingston or 30 to 34 Market Street, Montego Bay, St. James.
Let's take a look at genome sequencing and the possibilities inherent for advancing healthcare.
There's a growing interest in Jamaica and the international community in genome analysis, that is, sequencing the total number of DNA in an organism. Such interest is sparked by the significant potential to find solutions to countless public health threats that emerge and re-emerge. In support of the advancement in health sciences, the government has invested in the acquisition of a genome sequencing machine for the country. It was handed over to the National Influenza Center located at the University Hospital of the West Indies in October 2021.
This investment is from the government of Jamaica to the University of the West Indies, which is under the government of Jamaica, though it has a charter. And it must be for always to deliver the priorities of the government of Jamaica. Clearly, the university has a research mandate. However, when the national priorities are identified and communicated, the government expects that the resources of the University of the West Indies, those that we have contributed directly, and those that the university, through its very substantial efforts, would have raised by themselves, should be directed to those nationally identified efforts.
This machine will assist local scientists analyze genome, which is the sum total of all deoxyribonucleic acid DNA sequence of an organism.
Comprehensive national surveillance of COVID-19 will require the adaptation and reinforcement of existing national systems where appropriate and scale up additional surveillance capacities as needed. Digital technologies for rapid reporting, contact tracing, and data management and analysis may support these capacities.
We must be strategic in our approach to building local capacity and resilience. It is a critical piece of equipment which will enable us to test for new coronavirus variants. The samples which have been previously sent to the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, will now be tested in Jamaica, dramatically increasing our response to the emergence of new variant strains. We will now have capacity to manage the endemic phase of the pandemic because there are always now going to be new strains of SARS-CoV-2 emerging. We don't have to wait 6 weeks to know if it is here. So our policies and strategies can be informed much better than before, and so we will know what actions that need to be taken much earlier.
The National Influenza Center is the only laboratory in Jamaica with the capacity to diagnose and isolate highly infectious viruses. The government has for some time been bolstering the center's microbiology and microbial testing capacity with recent investments including a polymerase chain reaction PCR machine. These long-term investments will enable the country to respond effectively to the immediate needs as well as future threats.
New viruses and pathogens are being discovered and are emerging almost on a daily basis. And existing pathogens are becoming more resistant and they are changing over time. And so the capacity of the country has to be developed for us to be able to track and trace. So when we see new diseases emerging, when we see old diseases re-emerging, we need not just to be able to treat them, which is what the public understands, but that is 10% of the problem. 90% of the problem is to be able to almost predict what is coming because you have been studying it for a long period of time.
The newest investment, the genome sequencing machine, is a key driver to such studies, and local experts in the medical and scientific community are all enthused about the possibilities.
What we're seeing here is a new service supporting public health, a new service supporting clinical care, and a new service supporting research. UHII is now part of a global network of cutting-edge labs, and the sequencing service fits exactly into what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is to prepare for the next pandemic.
Local scientists will also be able to use genome sequencing to assist them in providing answers to fundamental questions about antimicrobial resistance, which is currently a big problem globally. It should also assist in finding solutions for the control of hospital infections. The machine was purchased at a cost of $40 million, financed by the Culture, Health, Arts, Science and Education Chase Fund.
The Chase Fund is proud to be the funding partner of this landmark project here in Jamaica. This piece of equipment is at the cutting edge of technology, and we at Chase, we believe in that. And it will make our country proud by the service it will provide, and on top of that, it will single out us as a country, and Jamaica will stand tall in this effort because of this effort.
To ensure the machine stays up and running, Chase is providing financing for maintenance and servicing for 3 years, as well as for training and technical support.
I must urge all users of cyberspace, do not, for fear of being labeled a victim, refuse to report or follow through the process. Once you think that there is something wrong, seek advice, and the easiest way to get that advice is to come to Jamaica CERT or to go to the nearest police station. You will not be looked down upon for being a victim of cybercrime, because it is a matter of when for us all, not if.
To report a cybercrime, call or visit the website of the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team or make a report to your nearest police station.
We continue to turn the pages on our journey inside Jamaica Magazine and head into our farmlands for a look at how you can earn a living through agriculture.
Farming is a way of life, especially here in Jamaica. Today, an increasing number of young people are getting involved.
Back then, persons used to look down on agriculture based on the stigma that agriculture is for a particular group of persons. But I am proud to say that that stigma has been reduced significantly. So no longer is agriculture a last option. It's a primary option where persons are now interested in pursuing even studies at the master's level in agriculture.
Getting started in agriculture can be tricky, so there are a number of things new farmers need to be aware of.
For young persons who would like to get involved in agriculture, the first thing I would say to them, they have to first assess their interest. Agriculture is a very wide industry with different sectors, and so they first need to look at, do I have an interest in crop production or animal production?
Crop production is the process of growing produce for domestic and commercial purposes, whereas animal production is the technology applied to keeping animals for profit. You know, feeding, rearing, and breeding. That's just the basics. So for the next few minutes, we'll learn more about getting started in crop production.
We at RADA, and the field staff particularly, when we are engaged about young persons getting into farming, when they approach us, one of the main things we want to emphasize is about training. A lot of persons who want to venture into agriculture, and they see it as something that they can get into without getting that technical knowledge, because it's easy to go and get the land, prepare and sow the seeds and all of that. But there's a lot of other issues you have to consider. You have to consider the pest and the disease control. As you say, you have to look at the weather condition, you have to look at the type of crop. Different crop require different environmental conditions. Two major things we also emphasize to new entrant farmers is we look at the markets. Don't just jump into production without thinking about your market. I know it's sort of tempting for a lot of persons when prices are high and it look very nice, and you can get a lot of income, but that's not always the case. Because by the time you put in that crop, the price is usually, and the crop come in, the price is usually low. So we look at the market. And another thing, we look at the cost of production. A lot of new entrant farmers, they want to get into production without looking at what it costs to produce a crop. That is very important, because that is how you can determine if you are able to make a profit based on how you estimate your costs and your market price and all of that. So we emphasize the cost of production. So those are some of the things we emphasize to new entrant farmers.
So there are different options such as agro-processing that young persons can venture. So you don't have to be looking at agriculture as going in the sun, sweating. You can still do that practice. That's the traditional practice. But there are some contemporary practices that involves technology, such as hydroponics and aquaponics. And so young persons can look at that option as well. So don't picture a farmer as this person in dirty clothes, this person riding a donkey. Some of the farmers know they are driving the biggest vehicle you can think of, and they live in the best household that you can think of. Another thing that you need to do is to partner with RADA, in particularly the agri-linkages, to help you seek possible markets before you venture into the field of agriculture. And what you can also do is to do a SWOT analysis. When I say a SWOT analysis, once you identify your interest, you're going to be now looking at your strengths, assess the strengths, you're going to assess the weaknesses and how you can overcome them. You're going to look at the opportunities that exist, and you're now going to be looking at the threats. So one of your threats could be your, I wouldn't say competitor, because in agriculture, I don't want to give the impression that we are competing. We're all in this thing together. But there are some threats such as disaster. How can you bounce back, or how can you mitigate certain effects? So a SWOT analysis is very important when you're looking at agriculture as a young person.
With all that information in mind, get started with your research. Start farming, as you can help to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business by growing what we eat so we can eat what we grow.
I want to get rid of that stigma that is attached to agriculture. And I want persons to understand that if we don't have farmers, we won't have any people. So where there's no food, the people will perish. So look at agriculture as a business and not as a traditional, disregarded occupation. It's a very lucrative, very vibrant occupation that you should all think of.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60, and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
Before we end our journey today, change your position a bit. Get up and get ready to move with the dancers of this Jamaican traditional folk form.
There's no one way to truly play the beat of our Jamaican culture. No one way to unfold the depth of the various movements that are intricately intertwined with the drums, or whatever uniquely made instruments that accompany each other. And certainly, no one way to shake our hips, tap our feet, move our hands or dress to distinguish the truest form of our heritage in dance. But there are certainly several ways to tell the island's tale of musical artistry and infectious rhythms. Today, we tell the story of the African retention in one of our Jamaican traditional folk forms, Gere.
Gere is one of Jamaica's more than 10 traditional folk forms that are mostly influenced by our African heritage and retention. Today, we take a close look at this work of art. To observe the fundamental rhythm of this artistry, we visited the award-winning William Knibb High School in Trelawney.
Hello, Bayado. Hello, Bayado. Hello, Bayado. You write me love letter. Me put it on the table. Me put my come read it. Hello, Bayado. Hello, Bayado. Hello, Bayado.
Gere is a dance of African origin that is usually performed the second night after the death of a person. The dance is very lively, flirtatious, and celebratory in nature, geared towards cheering the bereaved.
I should tell you too that most of our traditional folk from the African retentions, they are more similarities than differences. And the differences come sometimes in the songs or the music instrument or some of the steps. But there are more similarities than differences.
With that said, the Gere dance is similar to that of Dinky Minnie and Zella, with more emphasis being placed on the hippie movement, executed mainly by the female dancers.
The main movement for the ladies is the hippie movement, right? The hippie movement, and it's not a whiny movement. It's not a whiny movement, it's just a little hippie movement, like the mentor movement, a little dip, all right? And for the males, you'll find them doing the knock-knee like the Dinky Minnie.
The movements, although vigorous, are very subtle. The males would maintain the knock-knee position while exhibiting various styles and nuances as they execute their movement with subtle breaks towards their female partner, which is signaled by the drums. The music and songs are done in ring game style and often employ a call and response, which indicates the type of movement the dancer should do.
So you have a caller and have the response. The group respond to it.
Like all our other traditional folk forms, the Gere dance would not be possible without lively musical accompaniment. A host of instruments are used to bring life to the dance.
In the Gere, you will see the rattle and the bass drum. which is say dominant to revival. But then the dominant thing in Gary that makes it different from Dinky Mini and the others is the pot cover. And that gives a nice sound. All right?
As it relates to costume, Gary dancers are clad in the typical African retention dress code, loose skirt and peasant blouse for the females, and tailored pants and dashiki shirt for males.
All over African retention dances, traditional folk forms, they are done with 16 persons performing, and you have 6 others outside doing the singing and playing the instruments.
Today, Gere is mostly practiced in the western end of the island, but you will also see it being performed as part of the annual JCDC Festival of the Performing Arts competition. One thing is for sure, wherever it is practiced, one cannot help but notice that Gere has its own distinctive flair, which makes it a vital asset in Jamaica's rich amalgamation of cultures.
And when you bend down low, and when you bend down low, and when inna me red away, inna me, and when you bend down low, and when you bend down low, and when you bend.
Was chocolate milk invented in Jamaica? Well, history has it that the first use of the term milk chocolate was for a beverage brought to London from Jamaica in 1687. The vehicle was one Sir Hans Sloane, physician to the governor of Jamaica. The story is that he was introduced to chocolate tea by slaves whom he saw drinking it. They told him that it was more delicious with milk and that the chocolate tea was also good for health. Sloane went back to England and produced milk chocolate, which later became Cadbury's. But it was not until the Swiss inventor Daniel Peter successfully combined cocoa and condensed milk in 1875 that the commercial milk chocolate bar was invented. Celebrating Jamaica 60 with pieces of our history.
And this is where we close another edition of Jamaica Magazine today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for another show. Until then, there is more to watch by visiting our website. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Adrian Atkins, and until next time, do take care and keep safe.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.